This guy, I'm really looking forward. This is going to be a real fun panel. When they announced this, I was like, I got to have it, so I asked for it because I think it's going to be really cool. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Norm Peterson himself, Mr. George Wendt.
Great.
So how are you doing today?
I'm fresh as a daisy, as always.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah.
So I just thought I'd start, right from the beginning. How did you get in? Well, not the beginning, but like the beginning of your career. Is that?
Sure, yeah.
So how did you become a performer? How did you get into acting?
I wanted to do something that I wouldn't hate, so I couldn't think of anything. The only thing I could think of that I wouldn't hate was to be in Second City in Chicago, which is this nightclub, which they do sketch and improv. And so I had no idea how hard it would be to get into that. So I just decided I would take classes there, and sure enough, it worked out. I spent 6 years there, although you never really leave. It's like the Marine Corps. You know, you still get calls to do the odd gig. And after that, after 6 years there, met my wife there. We decided to go to LA to look for film and TV work, and that was 1980. And then Cheers popped up in 1982.
Oh, so you went there to look for film work, and bam, you found Cheers. That's pretty.
Film and TV work, yeah.
That's excellent. So what was the audition process like for Cheers for the character of Norm?
There's the better story is Ratzenberg's story, which I'll tell.
He told it just last year, right here. So go on.
Yeah. Well, my story was, that I was not available for Cheers because I was on this other show, and but they said, well, look, can you come in and do a guest spot? And my agent says, I got to tell you, honey, it's just one line. Actually, it's one word. Actually, it's one syllable. And it was beer, of course, was the word. And it was supposed to be at the end of the episode a little tag, where Shelley goes, hello, my name is Diane, I'll be your waitress. I'm not really a waitress, I'm an academic, blah, blah, blah. And she goes into her, page-long spiel like she always did. And then she said, oh, I should probably take your order. And I go, and she says, what do you have? And I go, beer. But they cut that. They said, that's too small. Why don't you read this other role? And it was named George. And so the guy who, just never was going to leave. And so then they said, all right, we want you to do it. But I wasn't allowed to do both shows, so they had me as a guest on the pilot and then added me as a regular once my other show was canceled, like you do, And and then just about 3 or 4 years ago, I found out that they were actually interested in me from the get-go, which was weird. I'm glad I didn't know. But it was named George, and I thought that was peculiar. And the Charles brothers and Jim Burrows were being interviewed at UC Santa Barbara, and they asked me to show up as a surprise guest. So I'm sort of sitting there in the wings, just watching them because they're so funny and cool. And some audience member said, "Nani, did you have anybody in mind when you were writing Cheers for casting?" And they go, "Oh my God, no. Oh, we saw everybody in Hollywood, and this is Sam and Diane." And it said it took months and months. And then they go, "But yeah, Rhea, yeah, we had her in mind. And George." I'm like, "What? Now you tell me?" Anyway, but the better story is Ratzenberger goes in for George and senses that it wasn't going well. So, have you heard this one? Okay,
that's a great story.
They're like, "Thank you very much," and he's "Thank you," and and he's literally, not figuratively, literally has one foot out the door, and pops his head back in and says, "Do you have a bar know-it-all?" And they go, "No, what do you mean?" And he started improvising in that Cliff Clavin character, and they started laughing, and they wrote it into the show, and there you go. So, yeah, he had some chutzpah. But the name Cliff Clavin was, I think, Jim Burrows' wife's gynecologist. Yeah.
He didn't tell us that part. He failed to mention that last year.
Yeah.
But so did you, like Ratzenberger, did you have any creation? And Norm was, 11 years it went on. So did you have any input in those years into the character? Any of the dialogue or scenes?
They didn't need much help from me. They were such great, clever writers. I just accepted gleefully, everything they sent my way.
I would say they would need much from you. I think you played that character. He played that character really well, didn't he? I mean, that was one of the greatest parts of that show.
Thank you. Stop. Oh, come on. Looking like a guy who needed a beer. That was like a lifetime in the making, that role.
But, so, I mean, just to prove how popular Norm Peterson is, you've played him for a record on 5 different series throughout your career. So that's how popular he is.
I think there's more.
My bad. I don't know. You're the Norm expert, not me.
I think, okay, so Cheers, does that count as one?
Absolutely.
All right, Cheers. Tortellis.
Tortellis, yeah.
Wings. Frasier,
I got.
Oh, it's the Doctors. St. Elsewhere.
Right, I knew that one.
Simpsons.
Oh, I didn't count that. Oh.
Family Guy. Simpsons was funny. I don't remember Family Guy too much, but Simpsons was Norm got surly with Woody. Like, and he wouldn't give me a beer. I was like, give me a beer, Woody. And he's like, I don't know, Mr. Peterson, you've had a... And I take an empty beer bottle and I smash it over the bar. And I threaten him like I hold it to his throat. You dumb hick, give me a beer, like hillbilly, They can get away with murder.
Did you have a favorite scene or episode for Norm, or just overall in Cheers? Did you have a favorite maybe part that maybe you weren't even in? But
one of my favorite episodes, and I don't know why, but when the boys all went skydiving.
Yeah.
And to a man, we chickened out. So we're up in the plane, and we've all completely bailed out on doing that. But we can't tell them at the bar that we chickened out. Right, so we've got to come up with a story. Right, but we've got to be able to stick to the story, so let's keep it very simple, keep it believable. Right, it's got to be simple and believable. So Sam goes, I've got it. We jumped, the parachutes opened, and we landed. It's simple. It's believable. Right. Okay, everybody. Right. Okay. Right. We jumped, the parachutes open, and we landed. Right. Yeah. So we get back to the bar, and we're like, woo, oh my God. We're high-fiving, and that was amazing. I feel so alive. And Carla goes, whoa, what happened? What? Oh, it was fantastic. What? And then she corners Woody. And Woody, what happened? And he goes, what? We jumped, the parachutes opened, and we landed. It was all very simple and believable. And then I had another favorite joke was another Woody joke. We were in having a feud with Gary's Old Town Tavern, and Woody got kidnapped or something, and we're like worried, concerned about his whereabouts, and then we see, those stairs going down. There was a window, and we see Woody bound and gagged with like duct tape and hanging by a noose from his feet, and they lowered him down into the window. And he's like Houdini. He's like, and we run out to cut him down and save him, and he's like, he's trying to tell us something. What? Take the tape off. And we go, don't rip off the tape. Too late.
So I was wondering if we could just, and we can go back to Cheers, and of course we're going to open this to Q&A in a couple of minutes, but I just wanted, there's a couple more parts in your career I want to talk, and one of my favorite TV shows is Columbo, and you played one of the killers in one of the last episodes of Columbo, and I was wondering if you can talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, well, it was a thrill, to be the bad guy in Columbo, and I was really bad. I murdered my brother, so, the format, which I remember seeing, in my younger days, but I sort of really didn't understand. But it's, there's all these cat and mouse scenes with the killer. And the audience knows, and the fun was trying to find, how Columbo figured it out. And so, geez, we must have had maybe 4, like 5-page cat and mouse scenes. And Peter was just amazing. That guy, he was just so much fun, such great stories, and such a bulldog, really just, we'd go over them, and he'd say, no, don't do it that way, don't, and then I'd be looking at him when he was trying to tell me, what to do, and I'd be going, and he'd go, do it like that, and okay. Anyway, I've never seen anybody get laughs just by what the audience thinks he might say. Like, somebody would ask a question, and then Peter would go, see, it doesn't work for me. But Peter, they would just break out laughing, just wondering what he was thinking.
And for those he's talking about Peter Falk, who's the star of Columbo. You guys know Columbo, right? Yeah. I'm looking around their audience. They're all about my age, so we all grew up watching that. But, another great character you had was Bob Swirsky with, if for those of you who don't know, that's De Beers. So I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about how that came about.
Well, Joe Mantegna, okay. How it really came about was these guys were in Second City classes, much like the ones I took. And they were doing a show at a bar called the Deja Vu on Lincoln Avenue in Chicago. And it was, amongst the cast was Conan O'Brien and Robert Smigel and Bob Odenkirk and Andy Richter. And they, so Lorne Michaels was looking for people for SNL. And so Franken and Davis, our great senator from Minnesota, Al Franken, and the late Tom Davis, his former writing partner, they were sent to Chicago and they went to see this show miraculously, and they hired Conan and Smigel and Odenkirk for SNL. And so they, for 2-3 years, they kept pitching this idea of these Chicago sports fans, this sketch that they had done in Chicago. And everyone was like, nah, I don't think so. And so finally, Joe Mantegna hosted, and he was interested. So it got on the air, and I thought it was hilarious because Joe's a friend, and so then a few months later, I was hosting. Oh, that was a Bears game against the Giants, and the Bulls were making their run in the spring to championship, and so that was. They asked me if I would do it, and so that's why I was said I'm sitting in for my brother Bill or my brother Bob. I can never remember who was who because Joe wasn't available at the time. So, yeah, we did a lot of those, and we still do stupid things. We have fun with those characters. They're completely ridiculous. I think we did a State Farm commercial like 2 years ago with Aaron Rodgers. My first shot of the morning was, okay, lay down on this massage, take off your clothes, lay down on this massage table, and Coach Ditka is gonna, give you a massage, smoking a big cigar, and he's like, and those characters were so latently homosexual, it was this, it was Dick, and I was, instead of those massage pillows, it was a ring bologna, and so I'm like, while Ditka's massaging me, and then it was my dream sequence. It turns out I fell asleep on a plane next to Aaron Rodgers, and I was gnawing on his shoulder.
Right.
Yeah. And then he went down with like a shoulder injury, so. Yeah. But the characters are fun.
Excellent. So do you, with years of playing Norm, I would imagine, do you go to a bar and people just buy you beer all the time?
It can happen.
It does happen? Would you, can I buy you a beer?
Well, certainly.
Okay. No, I meant now.
Yeah. I'm not much of a day drinker, truth be told, but I appreciate the gesture.
But it just so happens to be I own a company that makes pint glasses, so.
Cool.
So, do you have any other further comments about Norm, some famous episodes while I pour these down? Maybe I should have done it earlier.
I'm sorry, what?
Do you have any other further comments about Norm? Any favorite scenes? Any favorite, maybe his wife you can talk about, or why did we never see her?
Oh, you didn't want to see her. It was just a mercy rule for the audience, I think.
And who was your favorite character to play off of? You had Woody, you had Sam, you had Carla.
Jeez, it was Murderer's Row. I can't really pick anyone out because John obviously, we had tremendous chemistry, but it was the same with everybody. Oh, I can tell you about the Spitballs. You know how I sat at the waitress station, basically, or right next to it? Hey, thanks.
You're welcome. Here.
Cool.
Actually, it's an Alec Guinness pint glass. Get it?
Ah.
That's fun. See, I even have a shirt. See?
That's cool. That's a good idea. Now, you know how you know when it's settled, you got to take an old Irish pound.
May I have your attention, please?
Uh-oh.
May I have your attention, please?
Fire drill. I had all the gear, so I had these little cocktail napkins and little cocktail straws. And so I would just take a little nip of the napkin and play with it in my mouth and do it through the little straw. And I was deadly. I could launch it clear across the bar. So I used to like to pick on Woody because once in a while he had a little chunk of, like a paragraph to say instead of just the odd, one-liner. So I used to just pelt his forehead. If you've got like freeze frame on your DVDs, you can see like just ding, spitballs whizzing off his forehead. But my greatest moment was Ted's mouth was open, and I got him right on the uvula. I saw it. I zenned it all the way. Ding! Like right. He was like, yeah. So I was good with that.
So I thought we'd have a fun little idea. Is that you have the what a Norm witticism is, right?
All right.
You know what those are. So I want you guys to help me out. So what we're going to do is I'm going to say one of those questions that Woody or Sam or Carla would ask, and then Norm would respond. You guys remember what I'm talking about? But what happens before that happens? He walks in the bar and everyone goes. Okay, so every time I go like that, I want you guys to go Norm. And so what is it? What's next door? Like a Star Trek panel? I want them to hear us saying Norm. And then I was going to give Mr. Wendt a script, and he was going to read off it as we do it, kind of like, just a part in the episode. But he has challenged me that he's going to maybe possibly remember them. So we're going to see how we're going to do. All right, you guys ready? Are you ready, Mr. Wendt?
I'm gonna bat 9 out of 10.
Really?
I think so.
Wow. I'd be quite impressed. All right, so here we go. How's the beer sound, Norm? You got 9 more, so. How does a beer sound, Norm?
Drink me? No?
Do you want me to just say it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I usually finish them before they get a word in.
See how much more clever those guys were than me?
Can I draw you a beer, Norm?
I know what they look like. Just pour it.
There you go.
Ding, ding, ding. All right, this is gonna get old. This is gonna get old with the Norm. Come on.
All right, no more. Okay, that was the last one. All right. What would you say to a nice beer, Normie?
Hello, sailor, new in town.
This one's my
Was
favorite.
that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there's actually 2 where he says the same thing. One says going down, the other one says sailor, new in town. What's new, Normie? This one's long, but it's funny.
I don't know.
Terrorists, Sam, they've taken over my stomach and they're demanding beer. And this one's being asked by Coach. What'll it be, Normie? Just the usual, Coach. I'll have a froth of beer
No.
and a snorkel. All right, we'll do one more. We'll do one
You know,
more.
Nick used to sometimes garble the setup lines, which left me out to dry. Like I think the punchline or the setup was supposed to be, "How's life treating you, Norm?" And my answer was, "Like I just ran over its dog." and so he'd go, "Hey, Normie, want a beer?" And like I just ran over its dog. Thanks for that, Nick. And, okay, take 2. Normie, how you doing? Like I just ran over its dog. So anyway, the gag reels were fun.
All right, great. Let's see if we have any questions from the audience. Do we have any questions from the audience here? Elias, are you still here with the mic? Where's Elias? Where's my mic guy? Oh, it's her. Okay. She's right over there. Just, what's that? Oh, like the Sith. Okay, cool.
Hey, George, thanks for being here today. I just wanted to follow up on the Superfans conversation. I'd heard that at some point they were planning a movie and that you guys have actually done a live reading of the script. I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on, how far along in the development process that was and how the script reading went.
Well, it was a long time ago. It was before Chris Farley died, and so that it was pretty far along. But as soon as Chris died, that was the end of it. So then maybe like whatever years later, as a benefit concert for Chris Farley Foundation, we did a reading of it with lots of folks helping out. And, it was hilarious. Way too long, but, it was funny. It was a new sport, fan ball, where Chris was inside of a bubble. And, all the fans, there was no teams. There was just, 50,000 New York fans versus 50,000 Chicago fans trying to push this boy in a bubble, Chris, like, over, past the goal line. And, but, it had all sorts of, these guys, it's Bob Odenkirk and Robert Smigel, very clever, very vicious satirists, so they took swipes at everything, the culture and, But anyway, it was a fun read, but, rest in peace, Chris.
Thank you. So we have a question over here.
Hey, George, thanks for being here. How was your experience working on House, the movie House, with the cat?
Well, it was fun. Thanks. It was fun. Playing around with a monster on a fishing line. It was fun. And Bill Catt was really, really fun. And turns out the director and I grew up in the same neighborhood on the south side of Chicago, Stephen Miner. And, so it was good times. And so I don't really, forgive me, I don't have, some amazing stories. Cheers is so much different. We had a lot of downtime. We were all together every day. Movies are such a more dry process. You can't really mess around.
All right. Thank you. Do we have a question over here?
Hi, George. It's great to see you. What is the funniest thing you think Norm ever said?
Well, I think the gold standard is probably Dog Eat Dog World, but I'm wearing milk bone underwear, which is, there's a couple others that rival it, like Beer Normie. Yeah, coach, but stop me at 1. Make that 1:30. And then what's shaking, Norm? All 4 cheeks and a couple of chins. But there was a bunch. Yeah.
Hi, George.
Hi.
I was just curious if you could talk about a couple of your villain roles that you've done, like on the Masters of Horror episode Family by John Landis, or my favorite, King of the Ants, which scared the crap out of me when I saw you in that, honestly.
Yeah. Well, both, fun projects, crazy. Landis asked me if, he said, now, George, if I got an ear, nose, and throat surgeon to come in and shoot string a camera up your nose and down your throat, would you be okay with that? And I was like, oh, Jesus, because I have a pretty strong gag reflex. And so I said, yeah, it's a ear, nose, and throat surgeon, so what the hell? And this couple was torturing me and with some device, and they were going up my nose, and Landis wanted to see my vocal cords screaming, going, ah, like that. And the crew, meanwhile, it was the last shot of the night. It was like 3 a.m, and the crew had, like a puke bucket there for me, and they had a pool going as to whether I would puke or not. And so I told John, yeah, I'll do it, but I want the final shooting script to read Interior George Wendt. And just so that's the way it landed. But I was really, the most shocking thing was I couldn't believe how much hair I had in my nose. This camera going up in there it was like a forest. It was crazy.
Okay, which side are we at? Right here, in the center.
Hi, I'm a huge fan, but who is your favorite person you met from Cheers?
Can you say that again?
Who's my favorite person that I met?
From Cheers, yeah.
Well, there's the whole cast, but apart from the cast, we had a lot of fun guest stars. I'm thinking John Cleese jumps out right off the bat.
Oh, yeah, that was a great.
Yeah, Monty Python guy.
That's always been my favorite episode, the one with John Cleese.
Well, I think he did 2 or 3 actually.
He was like
Yeah.
the marriage counselor
Yeah.
for the two of them, and he was great.
Hi, Mr. Wendt, nice to meet
Hi.
you. Can you talk a little bit about the night when it was the final episode and you're on the Tonight Show when you all came to the actual Cheers in Boston? Any good kind of anecdote stories about that night? It seemed like you're all having a good time. I remember it being kind of on TV at least, it showed like it was a wild, crazy night.
Yeah, well, NBC thought it would be good to have us do the Tonight Show, and Jay Leno was brand new on the job. He was trying to, be pretty, have control over it. But what happened was it was a 2-hour episode, I think, and nobody thought to feed us, and so we just pounded drinks because it was, it was such an occasion. So we were just, hammered. Not cute at all. I mean, like, it was icky, and poor Jay was trying to keep it together, and, we were just, there might have been, I don't know what, we just were incorrigible. But, so I apologize for that one, but
That's a great question, by the way. Who do we have next? Way in the back.
Hi. It's not as much a question as a thank you. I used to sleep over at my grandparents' place, and my grandfather really, you were his favorite character for Cheers.
thanks.
I just wanted to let you know that you coming and doing things like this helps bring up memories like that for us, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, well, thank you for the kind words.
Question, but you had, on the set of Cheers, you had maybe hundreds and hundreds of not beers. If you had a choice, what would have been your beer of choice to be in that glass every day or most days on the set?
That feels like it would be bordering on an endorsement. So you'd have to back up the truck, I think, before I divulge that.
That's a good point. I guess any beer company in the world would pay anything almost to get you to endorse a beer.
Well,
I mean, they would pay a.
I've done my share of beer commercials.
You have?
I have. I think I did Miller Lite here, and then I did a Coors thing here, and a lot of overseas, like Denmark and Ireland and Canada.
That's a great question, because had you answered, let's just say your answer was Foster's, which it's not, because nobody likes that beer. But let's say it was Foster, it would be all over the internet. Norm Peterson endorses Foster's. It would go, but he didn't say that. I did, and okay, don't go on the internet and go crazy. Where's our next question?
No, I do. My standard answer, it was, what's your favorite beer, is Free and Free Light.
Whatever.
Hey, Mr. Wendt.
Hey.
Just wanted to ask a question. Did they ever touch upon what your tab actually was?
What?
Your tab?
Oh, my tab. No, some guy, at least one guy, has done it. Figured it out from binge watching, I guess. And I honestly, I don't know the answer, but some guy figured it out.
All right, great question, and thank you for your service. I see your hat. Over here.
Hi, George. Just a quick question, going back to beer for a minute. What is your take on the microbrew explosion? Are you into those, or is it the bigger brands that you
No, I.
Without naming any brands, of course.
No, the microbrew thing is amazing, and my MO lately is when I go to like region or town X, Y, or Z, I look up and ask around, like what's the cool local craft brew, if you will, and also the cool. Macro brew, or, sometimes they have them regionally. And yes, I like all that stuff. It's pretty amazing.
All right, thank you. Next question, where are they? I don't see them. Oh, there's one. And
Well, I see somebody waving way back there.
you can ask a second question, because I liked your first question, so you're cool if you got a second one. Can I say my favorite beer?
Yeah.
It's Eckschalling-Kehle. It's out of Bavaria. It's a Rauch beer, a smoked beer. It's very good. No one cares, so I just thought I'd say it while we're waiting for someone else, because I'm out of questions, so it's just, I'm holding it. You had a good question last time, so you got to have a good one, too.
I don't know if it's going to be as good. So what do they pour you, actually, is on set for the show? Was that actually something?
Well, it was near beer, so non-alcoholic beer. And there weren't a lot of choices like there are now. So it was Kingsbury Brew near beer from Cincinnati, and it wasn't available on draft. So we had cases of cans of it, but the producers wanted it to come out of a tap handle. So they poured it into like Coca-Cola dispensers, and of course well before shooting, because props department had more important things to do, and it came out kind of warm and flat. So they said that doesn't look good, and so the prop man put every beer glass on the set had a pinch of salt in the bottom, so it was salty, warm, flat, near beer.
Oh, that sounds terrible. Oh, it's
Yeah.
way in the back.
Hi, George. Can you hear me okay? Cheers was one of my all-time favorite shows, and one of my favorite episodes was when you carried Mr. Drake across the lawn in his pajamas so Rebecca could escape. Do you remember that episode, I'm sure?
Yeah, I remember Tom Skerritt being way heavier than he looks.
My question to you is, what is your favorite episode and why?
It was that jumping jerks, and no real reason. Although if you wanted to go for like a norm-focused story, I always found those. I thought the show was at its best when everybody had their sort of proper function. Where it was like a Sam Diane romantic thing. And, each of the characters had a nice little joke or entrance or, B story, if you will, or a teaser or a tag. So once in a while, we'd all get these episodes that focused on, Cliff or Carla or Woody or something. And so Rhea's sister, Heidi Perlman, terrific comedy writer, not just Rhea's sister, but she's been on writing on everything forever. She wrote one called The Executive's Executioner, where I had a job, which, weird. And the job, they found out that I was good at giving the hatchet to firing people because I burst into tears. I was so compassionate every time I had to fire somebody, I would burst into tears. So now everyone at the company, it was like a big firm apparently, and somebody said they wanted to know if you wanted to have a beer at Cheers with Norm. No, you're getting the axe. Like it was, it was fun.
I remember that one, thank you.
Cool.
Okay, right there in the middle.
Hey, George.
Hi.
How's it going? So,
Ooh, what are we missing? FOMO.
Find out what the panel is.
one of the things that defines your character is, of course, drinking beer, but otherwise, you did touch upon it. You're an accountant for a big portion of the show. My wife is also an accountant here.
Ah, cool.
And she wanted to ask a question, but didn't feel like asking it, so I'm doing it for her. Have you ever had anyone come up to you and be like, "You're such an idol for accountants"?
Yeah, actually, yeah. Yeah, they're usually postmen, but yeah.
That's a good point. Norm Peterson is probably the most famous accountant on television. Has there really been one? I mean, Cliff would be the most famous postman, obviously.
Yeah. I don't know. You know, I was out of work for the most part, so it was just...
Well, he was an out-of-work accountant, right? Isn't it?
Out-of-work accountant who didn't have a particularly good relationship with his wife and was well overweight. So these are the perils and evils of drink. That was the subtext of the whole show.
If I understand, I didn't know this, but your actual wife in real life did the voice for Vera?
She did.
I did not know that until I did my research.
You would want to see her.
Oh, no, I wasn't saying... God, I'm in trouble. All right, so do we have another question? Where do we go? We get, how about blue shirt over there with the good questions? You got another one? Right in front of you. Right there.
Hi, do you in contact with anyone from Cheers still, and if so, who?
Yes, everybody. Not every 2 seconds, but, probably mostly would be Woody, Rhea, Ted, John. I see BB, I see Kelsey, I see Shelley. Yeah, no, everybody, really. Kirsty, yeah.
Is there any time you guys have all been together since Cheers?
I don't think so. It's really hard,
Because everybody has, they're pretty,
Everybody's got families, and, like Woody lives in Hawaii, and...
Well, Woody, and he's been busy, too. He's had several movies come out this year.
Yeah.
And he's in Han Solo coming up, the new movie coming out in a couple months. He's got a lot of, he's a busy guy. So we got another question way in the back, and it might be our last, right? That's going to be our last question.
Okay, last year, as you know, John Ratzenberger was here, and we started a Facebook page called Bring Back Norm and Cliff. Have any idea about that? What's going on with that?
Oh, yeah. Just, we were sitting here, and in the conversation we were having about, wouldn't it be great, they did Frasier after Cheers, and we were thinking Norm and Cliff would be a great episode. Was it Cliff or Norm, or Cliff? And then my friend Rob here in the front row, he actually started a Facebook page while the panel was happening. And so thank you for bringing up, that's so funny that somebody remembered that from the audience. But they really wanted to do a Cliff and Norm show. Wouldn't that be hilarious? I'm sorry, Norm and Cliff show.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I always imagined Norm would be, managing a sober living house somewhere. If he's still alive.
Yeah, it's called Bring Back Cliff and Norm. It has 163 members. Okay, very good. That's a great final quote. We would love to see Norm back. You said you did 7 different iterations of Norm on 7 different shows, so maybe someday we'll see an 8th, possibly?
Yeah, I wouldn't rule it out.
I think it'd be great. Well, Mr. Peterson will be here for the rest of the weekend. I want to thank you all. You guys had some great questions. Thank you very much.
Thanks.